the man who trained his dogs to kill and paid the ultimate price. The chill in the air was thick that night, the wind howling through the trees like a warning. But for one man, the wind was nothing more than background noise. He had become numb to the world around him, a man hardened by years of cruelty and obsession. His name was Albert Grayson, a reclusive figure who lived on the outskirts of town, far from the watchful eyes of society. Most people knew little about him except for the rumors that swirled about his farm, a farm that was more like a fortress than a home. For years, Albert's life had been consumed by one singular, twisted goal: to create the perfect weapon, the tool of destruction, the ultimate predator. And the key to this horrific dream? His dogs. In the beginning, Albert had raised dogs like any other person might, caring for them, training them, teaching them to hunt. But that changed one fateful evening when he stumbled upon a dark book, an old, dusty tome with cryptic symbols etched onto the cover. As he flipped through its pages, he found what he had been searching for: the secrets to controlling animals. Not just to train them, but to break their will, twist their instincts, and turn them into instruments of death. It was a sickening temptation, one that Albert couldn't resist. He began his experiments slowly at first, using his own dogs, subjects he had raised from pups. He would starve them, isolate them, and twist their perceptions of loyalty until they could be molded into something far more sinister. Slowly, methodically, they became killers, their loyalty now not to him as their master, but to the darkness he instilled within them. As the years passed, Albert's farm became more and more isolated from the outside world. It wasn't just the eerie silence of the land that made people uncomfortable, but the unholy presence of the dogs. The few who ventured too close to his property reported seeing menacing shapes moving in the shadows, and hearing chilling growls echoing through the trees. But it wasn't just the dogs that became dangerous. Albert did too. His obsession consumed him entirely, and the people who once knew him as a quiet man with a passion for animals began to see a different side. His eyes grew dark, his face gaunt, his movements jerky, almost animalistic. He had become as monstrous as the creatures he trained. One evening, a young couple, Lucas and Sarah, decided to take a late-night stroll through the woods near Albert's property. They had heard the whispers but were dismissive of the rumors, thinking them to be exaggerated. The moon hung low in the sky, casting pale beams through the thick trees, lighting their way. But the further they walked, the more the air seemed to grow heavy, pressing in on them like a tangible force. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Lucas froze. There, in the distance, just beyond the line of trees, he could hear the unmistakable sound of growling. It was low at first, like a warning, but it grew louder, more intense. His heart raced. He grabbed Sarah's hand, ready to turn back, but before they could move, they were surrounded. From the darkness, a pack of large, hulking dogs emerged, eyes glowing, teeth bared, muscles rippling under their coats. They circled the couple, their growls filling the air like the sound of a storm approaching. And in the center, standing tall and unnervingly calm, was Albert Grayson. He watched them with cold, dead eyes. "What do you want?" Lucas demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. Albert's lips curled into a slow, twisted smile. "What I want is for you to understand the power I've created." The dogs didn't hesitate. They lunged. Sarah screamed as the dogs attacked, their jaws snapping shut around her legs and arms. Lucas tried to fight back, but it was like trying to stop a freight train with his bare hands. One of the dogs, larger than the rest, bit down on his neck with such force that he could feel the bones crack. The world around him spun, but through the haze of pain, he saw Albert standing in the background, watching with satisfaction. But as quickly as the attack had begun, it stopped. The dogs froze, their eyes now no longer filled with hunger, but with confusion. Something was wrong. The air had shifted. It was no longer Albert's will that controlled them, but something else, a force they could not understand. Behind them, a figure appeared from the shadows. A woman, pale and shaking, but with an air of quiet strength. It was Sarah's mother, a woman who had once been a close friend of Albert's late wife, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances many years ago. She had been searching for answers ever since, and tonight she had finally found them. "I should have known," she said, her voice a cold whisper that carried through the tension-filled air. He was always obsessed with control, and now he's paid the price. With a sudden, sharp motion, she held up an old, weathered amulet, the very one Albert's wife had worn before her disappearance. The dogs, seeing the symbol, froze in place. It was as though they had remembered something deep within them, something that was not shaped by Albert's cruelty. Albert's face twisted in horror as he realized what had happened. The power he had wielded so carelessly had now turned against him. The dogs he had spent years training had betrayed him, and he could do nothing to stop it. Why? Albert choked out, his voice cracking as he dropped to his knees. I gave them everything. The woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with both sorrow and resolve. You took everything from them, Albert, and now they will take everything from you. With one final, guttural command, the dogs turned on their master. The pack, once loyal only to Albert's twisted will, now turned their jaws on him. His screams echoed through the woods, but they were soon drowned out by the sound of tearing flesh, as the dogs he had trained to kill, now killed their creator. As the last of the cries faded into the night, Sarah's mother turned to the couple, who were still trembling in the shadows. You're safe now, she whispered. But remember this, some power should never be sought. Some darkness should never be unleashed. For when you try to control something that was never meant to be controlled, it always comes back for you. As Sarah and Lucas stumbled away from the scene, their hearts still racing, they knew this would be a night they would never forget. And as they disappeared into the night, the woods behind them seemed to grow even darker, its twisted secret forever etched in the fabric of the land. Life lesson. In the end, Albert Grayson's thirst for control led him to his ultimate downfall.